everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good night, hello from wherever you are in the world watching this. I wanted to come on. It's been an interesting few days. I've been just encountering a lot of people in their struggle, right? People are showing up to work and they have a lot going on at home. They're managing, some people are managing abuse, some people are managing cancer, and then some people are, just supporting someone that's going through it. And, it's hard. It's hard no matter which side you're on, one is not more or less. They're both just very different because it's hard as someone going through cancer to possibly be able to articulate the amount of feelings that you're feeling, the amount of stress that you're feeling, the amount of emotional labor that is just overwhelming, that you're managing for those around you, from the people you love that are in your house to like the strangers on the street, and there's really just no way to put it into words to make anyone else understand. The closest I've been able, I think, to accomplish that is through my book, and as I'm getting feedback, as everyone is starting to read it, people are telling me that they're understanding more of what their loved one is going through. And that brings me much comfort because honestly, that was one of my intentions for writing it. And the other intention was for the person going through it. It's really hard at times to understand everything that's going on in your mind, from the barrage of advice, direction, demands that come from your healthcare providers, the system, and then all of those same things that come from your family, friends, and loved ones, and sometimes just complete strangers. So it's just so hard because you're living in a world that operates the same way with new information and a completely different perspective that you didn't opt into by choice, that you just were scooped up and landed in this place or thrown in this place, right? Because obviously no one would opt for that, and no one wants to deviate from the system or the plan that they believed and loved and was planning on doing and living through. So there's just a lot of stress and pressures because you have the person going through it that's experiencing something that is just, you don't get it unless you're going through it. And then you have the others on the other side that are like, well, why don't you just do this? It's just that. And it's just not that simple, because when you're living through it and you're experiencing it firsthand and you're the one that's going through all of the side effects and your mind and emotional molting that is happening because you're losing all of the things that you thought to be true, all of the facts that are now no longer facts. They're just dreams or whimsical wishes that will never come true in the way in which you wanted them to and believed them to prior to the diagnosis, right? And everything. So then you have the caretakers and the friends and family and the healthcare providers on the other side that maybe have witnessed it in their past, sure, not saying that's not valid, but it's not the same thing. And they go, well, why don't you just do this? Well, it's only 6 months, or it's only this, it's only that. And I always say it's easy for you to say because you're not the one living it. You're not the one, whose whole life is just, changed. And you're not the one dealing with the side effects, and like the side effects that aren't just specific to this one period of time, right? There's side effects that you don't know until they're happening. And there's things that still happen to me like, and I ended chemo in March of 24. So I'm about to go into 2 years, and there's still things that happen that are from that, so it's not just. So I just wanted to come on here to say, like, you're not crazy. What you feel is completely valid on both sides of it. I can only speak to my side. I had a very lengthy phone call with my mother the other night because I sensed that she was getting frustrated with me, and she might not say that she was getting frustrated, but she wasn't understanding, or I was feeling that she wasn't understanding where I was coming from and why I was so set on certain things and being a certain way. And then I don't really understand where she's coming from because I'm not her and she's not me, right? So we had a very long, hour-long conversation, where things could get pushed at times, not heated, but just like where we weren't hearing each other. And then I believe we got somewhere at the end. And all I can say is that communication is best, honest communication. And then there's also moments where both sides have to step back and realize that you are only really ever going to be able to understand it from your perspective, because it's almost impossible. Well, it is impossible to step in someone else's shoes. You can read my book, you can read their journal, you can do all the things, but you're not living it. So you're always just one step or one piece removed from, what's going on. So before you say or get frustrated, just always remember that, no matter which side of this that you're on. And this also can tie into, someone that's in an abusive situation, where often people are like, well, why don't you just leave? And it's just, as I mentioned in other videos before, it's just simply not that simple, right? It can be that simple if you just met someone and it's barely been a month or 2 months or 3 months in, maybe 4, but after a certain point, just things aren't that simple. And I understand that it can be frustrating on either side of it, but the best thing that we can do is to communicate and to continuously do the work on both sides, right? We both should be asking ourselves the same questions. At the end of my second book, I leave the resource of prompts, of questions, of journaling questions that I've asked myself, and I ask myself all the time, constantly, and it helps us to dig in and to do the work and to understand. Because at the crux of it, which what I got to with my mom in the conversation, is that there is no cure. There is no answer. All that there are offerings that give, in the moment, potential relief and potential answers, but they're not finite. I struggled, do I say the next part? But the conversation got to, you're cancer free, or I'm free of cancer. I forget the exact words. Or I was cured. She said, you're cured. And I said, I'm not cured. I said, I'm cancer free in this moment because they removed it. They did treatment, and in this moment in time, I'm good. And I said, in this moment in time, because everything is fleeting and everything can change. And I said, and it's not coming from a dark or, woe is me place. It's coming from a very factual place, right? There is no cure for cancer. The protocols that they give, the standard of care that they give, does one thing. It removes what they can understand to remove, and they give you things that can give you the hope and potential of, a non-reoccurrence. And let's be clear, crystal clear here. The potential for disease and cancer and all the things lives in everyone. There is no one that is exempt. No one, literally no one, right? And so I think for her not understanding why I was pushing back on certain things came from, well, if they can cure you and you're cancer free. And I was like, but you're not understanding that there is no cure from what I'm understanding, what I'm seeing of everything. There are options that I can opt into that have the potential to push down a reoccurrence or to potentially not reoccur. But there's some times in people who don't reoccur, and we don't know that it is because of X or Y or Z, or if it just is, so, and I get it, like, don't go down the rabbit hole of certain things, but I think that it's also important to come to the table and be and live in reality and have those conversations and have those understandings within yourself. Like, you don't have to agree with me whatsoever, and I don't have to agree with you, and it's fine. But we have to understand that we're all coming from different perspectives, right? Like, for example, I don't drink alcohol anymore. Prior to cancer, I did. Now, because of my experience and because of what I feel, I don't. I don't push that on other people, because there's plenty of people that have had cancer and they do drink it. There's no right or wrong, right? Because at the end of the day, if I never had the cancer experience, I would 100% still be drinking alcohol, right? Like, it's just a fact. So things happen, you get new information, and we pivot and we change, and that's fine, and that's okay, and that's good. And like I said, there's no right or wrong. I don't, do what you do, because in the end of the day, you have free will, and this is your experience, this is your adventure that you're on, right? So you get to choose while you're here what you do. But I was using that as an example to her, saying, like, that's just an example of my perspective changed because my experience in life changed. So I can't do something for myself because of what I've been through and what I've experienced. So, and I think that is hard for some to grasp because they haven't lived it, right? Like, I've never given birth, so I can't have a perspective on, should people have an epidural, what's a home birth? I don't know, and I don't comment on it because I don't know. I can't have a perspective. I can't have a perspective on what it's like to be a man in the world. Why? Because I'm not a man, I'm a woman, right? So there's just certain things that I think that we can have conversations about, and we should be able to understand that we will walk away maybe a little wiser, maybe a little more informed, maybe a little more like, oh, okay, maybe can understand it. But with the understanding that you're just not going to understand and get certain things, and that's okay. And, that's also why it's even more important to have people that you can talk to, groups, individuals, whatever works for you, that can understand and have sat where you're sitting. Because if you're just talking with people who don't have that perspective, it can feel lonely. It can feel like you're crazy, or your experience isn't happening when in fact it is, and in fact you're not crazy. So I guess that's all I really wanted to come on to say. I really try to be intentional when I put the camera on and set it up and sit down, so I'm not just babbling, crap. I hope that, my messages find and reach the right people. And that's all I have for you today. And I wish you all well, health, great decisions, and do what makes you happy.